Welcome, everyone. I am Southern Belle 74. Please excuse my voice. I am still getting over the flu, but I am in here to give this good news to you. This is my top 4 trending topics, and we're going to begin with President Biden. He's getting ready to make a trip to Belgium. President Biden will travel to Brussels this week to meet with NATO allies amid the ongoing war in the Ukraine. Mr. Biden's Supreme Court nominee, Ketanji Brown Jackson, also will begin her confirmation hearings this week. So a lot's going to be going on this week, guys. I hope you stay tuned and you're watching the news and enjoying it because a lot of stuff is going on right now. Let's get into this news clip about Biden and his trip to Belgium.
President Biden travels to Brussels this week, aiming to present a united front on the Ukraine war with European and NATO leaders. That's just part of what's expected to be a pivotal week for the administration. CBS's Scott McFarland is at the White House with more. Scott, good evening.
Hey, Jerika, this extraordinary NATO summit is an opportunity for a show of solidarity by Western nations, but it's happening during an important moment back home as President Biden's historic Supreme Court nominee begins confirmation hearings. President Biden's arrival at the White House from a weekend trip to Delaware is just the beginning of a busy week of travel as the president heads to Belgium midweek to talk about NATO's military support and humanitarian efforts to help Ukraine. The White House press secretary says there are no plans for the president to visit Ukraine itself. The trip comes as the number of refugees has eclipsed 3 million and amid growing concern that some NATO countries could be drawn into the fighting.
American troops will not be on the ground in Ukraine at this moment. The president has been clear on that.
Before the president departs, his nominee for the Supreme Court, D.C. federal appellate judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, begins her confirmation hearing Monday before the Senate Judiciary Committee. The first black woman nominated to the high court gives an opening statement tomorrow before answering senators' questions Tuesday. The larger question, will any Republicans vote with Democrats to confirm Judge Jackson, who was rated well qualified by the American Bar Association? Republican leader Mitch McConnell told Face the Nation he's not yet decided how he'll vote.
I haven't made a final decision as to how I'm going to vote. I'm willing to listen to the testimony. That's why we have hearings.
And Scott.
All right, guys. That's going to be exciting. Like I said, I'm definitely going to be tuned into it, and I'm going to give you guys coverage of her hearing. Let's move on to our second story, and it's about Justice Clarence Thomas. I don't know if you guys have heard, but he was recently hospitalized.
And we've got some breaking news out of Washington, D.C. The Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas is hospitalized tonight because of some sort of an infection. A statement from the Supreme Court says that Thomas has been at a Washington hospital since Friday, actually, after experiencing flu-like symptoms. The court did not provide any additional details about that infection, but said that he is being treated with antibiotics tonight and that his symptoms are improving. Justice Thomas is 73 years old. He's been on the court since 1991. And we've got some breaking.
Let's move on to COVID. I don't know if you guys have heard or not, but COVID surges have been growing in China. And I heard that they have re-locked China down. Not only has China been affected, but certain parts of Europe. And there are sub-variants now in the United States. So I don't know if you guys listened to Dr. Fauci, but he did say that it's going to get worse before things get better. So let's get into this news clip.
We turn now to COVID as the United States sees a decrease in cases and easing of pandemic restrictions. China and Europe are dealing with serious outbreaks of new COVID strains. This news overseas comes as the CDC confirms an uptick in the presence of COVID-19 in wastewater samples across the U.S. For more on all this, we're going to bring in NBC News medical correspondent Dr. John Torres. Hey, Dr. Torres, I want to start by asking you about these new outbreaks that we're seeing in China and Europe. Is this the same strain we saw in the U.S. around Thanksgiving? And are these an indication that we might see another COVID spike here in the U.S.?
And good evening, Vicki. And I think what we're seeing here is basically a tale of two different countries. If you look at China, yeah, they're having large outbreaks in China right now. They're shutting down cities, trying to keep it under control. But China's in a little bit of a different situation because they tried that full containment, zero COVID type policy, which didn't work in any country that tried it. So they don't have that immunity built up. Plus, on top of that, the shot they use, the Sinovac, which is the Chinese vaccine, isn't nearly as effective as the mRNA vaccines we're using here and in Europe. So you can't really look at China and say that's something we're going to duplicate here. But then you turn to Europe, and in Europe you're seeing is countries like Austria that are having these huge surge in cases. They almost duplicate exactly what's going on here. And we've seen wave after wave where within a couple of weeks, we end up having the same type of situation they have there. And so that's the one the experts are looking at saying, we need to be cautious because we're seeing these cases rise in Europe where they essentially have the same vaccines we've used. They have the same level of protection that we have here, both from natural immunity and from vaccinations, possibly even higher. And they're starting to see these cases. Could be a harbinger of what's going to happen here, Vicki.
So keeping an eye on that. And back here at home, the CDC is confirming there has been an uptick in the presence of COVID-19 in wastewater samples happening all across the country. Do you think that the relaxed COVID protocols that we're seeing, did those start a little bit too early? And what are we learning from this new information?
I think, Vicki, we're going to find out really soon if they started a little early or not. And hopefully there are mechanisms in place to put them back into place if we start seeing these cases go up again, which is what should be happening. And with wastewater, essentially what happens is you end up having that bacteria, that virus in your intestine go into wastewater much sooner than it would be in a PCR test, for example. And so they can detect it in wastewater a lot quicker. And what they found in sampling over 500 different sites across the U.S. is that a third of them ended up having some positive COVID increases in the wastewater, which is more than they were just a month ago. And so the concern is, we're seeing it more around the country, but doesn't necessarily mean the cases are going to start accelerating. We don't know at this point, but something they're certainly keeping an eye on. And this is essentially like a canary in a coal mine. That wastewater gives experts an idea, gives scientists an idea of what they need to start looking for. And they're starting to look for that right now, Vicki.
Quickly, before I let you go, Dr. Torres, what does all this mean for another booster? We have Pfizer asking the FDA to authorize its second booster shot for people 65 and older. And, people are saying maybe this is going to be just like the annual flu shot that we have to get. What do you think?
And it might very well be, but right now what we're looking at is two different sets of information coming out of Israel. One showing that for young adults, that extra booster didn't really seem to matter a whole lot. But for those 60 and above, particularly 65 and above, it did seem to matter. And so that's what they're looking at right now, saying, should we be giving boosters to 65 and above, this extra booster? And that's what the FDA is going to start looking at here very quickly.
Always good to see you. Thanks for making sense of it, Dr. Torres.
All right, guys. And this final story comes out of, I believe it's Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. I'll make sure I'm giving you guys, yes, Arkansas. A mass shooting happened at a Arkansas car show. Violence broke out at a car show about 90 miles from Little Rock, Arkansas, leaving one person dead and at least 20 injured, including children. Let's get into this news clip.
Breaking overnight, a shooting at a car show in Arkansas, killing one person and injuring at least 20 others. This morning, police trying to piece together what happened. Elwin Lopez has more.
This morning, one suspect in custody. Police searching for more possible gunmen following terror at this car show in rural Arkansas, about 90 miles from Little Rock. People seen running for their lives amid gunfire. Authorities say at least one person was killed, 20 others injured, including children.
They shot the baby, bro.
People desperately flagging down an ambulance, rushing a victim inside. Investigators telling our affiliate KATV they're working to figure out whether there was more than one shooter. The car show, part of a weekend event by a community foundation. Wallace McGeehee, a founding member of the event, telling a local reporter he was there when the gunfire started.
Running, ducking, getting down, trying to get kids out the way. Some of us put our own self in the risk, just to help to get people out the way, get these kids out the way. We want our community to come back. We praying for you, and we're going to continue to pray.
Event organizers also posting on Facebook that this, quote, senseless violence needs to end, and what police are still looking into what led up to that shooting.
All right, Ellen, with those developments for us this morning, thank you.
All right, guys. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you so much for supporting my small little channel, and it is growing. You can check me out on Instagram. I am on Facebook, Twitter, and of course, right here. This is my backup channel. Let's talk about it. But my main channel is just plain Southern Belle 74. Well, I continue to give you news that you can use. Have a blessed day and blessed rest of your week.